Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Marvel's 31st film released in their roster. Came out last month on February the 17th, 2023. And it's the third movie in the Ant-Man trilogy. And today I'm going to give you a review, my thoughts on Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Before we do that, like always, please take a second to subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Hit the little notification bell to get notifications about future videos. And with that being said, let's talk about Ant-Man Quantumania. Let's talk about the numbers first. So opening weekend, Ant-Man did a little over $106 million, which it was actually a little bit better than some of the films from Phase 4, specifically Eternals and Shang-Chi. However, as I mentioned in a past video, I mentioned that I saw a post that said that Ant-Man had tied with Eternals as the worst reviewed film by the MCU. Now, I don't know if they were talking about Rotten Tomatoes from that post or if they took the information from that, but when I checked Rotten Tomatoes, it is indeed tied with Eternals at 47% by the critics. However, by the audience score is higher than Eternals for Ant-Man. So audience apparently liked Ant-Man better than Eternals, but critics put him at the same place. So let's talk about the premise of the film. So the storyline picks up after the events of End Game and covers what life is like now for Scott Lang after all that happened. And you see him getting a lot more respect. He's essentially like a celebrity. He's famous. He's an Avenger, that type of thing, which is actually pretty cool to see because I feel like people just be tossing dirt and just talking crazy on Ant-Man as like he wasn't one of the MVPs from Endgame. I'm just saying. So anyway, so it picks up after that, and they're showing what life is like for him. He's getting back into his relationship with his daughter, and just how him being away, how it just really put a strain there, and you know he missed a lot of time with her. And so she builds this thing that gets I want to say an antenna, but it gets a signal into the quantum realm, and she did that with the goal of creating a map of the quantum realm. And so what happens is the signal is picked up, their whole family is sucked into the quantum realm, and the rest of the storyline you're learning about Kang, you're learning about the history that Janet Van Dyne, who's played by Michelle Pfeiffer, the history that she has with Kang. You find out that he was actually exiled. He lands in the quantum realm. She actually helps him repair his ship, and after doing so, finds out that this is a bad dude. And so then she sabotages his ship. She takes the piece that they created and pretty much damages it, right? So it can't be used for him to repair a ship and then get out. And so the rest of the storyline just is covering them trying to prevent Kang from getting out. So they want to stop that from happening while at the same time getting back home themselves, right? So it's like a dual purpose in that they're trying to figure out how to get back to the normal world, so to speak, while at the same time keeping Kang locked in the quantum realm. So let's talk about some of the things I liked about the movie, right? Some of my pros. So the cast, for sure, and some of the new characters. So you see Hope back, you see just about everybody back. I didn't see Michael Pena's character, unfortunately. It would have been cool to see him in there, but he was not. So I think the cast themselves, they have just such a good chemistry with one another on film. And I think that was just, it was really cool to see that happen. That actually goes hand in hand with another one is and also wait, actually, let me add something to that too, the new characters. So there are a bunch of new characters that we see introduced in the film, which really just continues with the MCU or what Marvel's doing right now, which is introducing a ton of just new characters just in general in the MCU, which is just showing that it's just expanding more and more. And that goes hand in hand with actually before I get to to what I was going to say a second ago, I'll get into the quantum realm. So you definitely see that it's explored a lot more, right? You see that it's more developed than Hank Pym and those who've been studying the quantum realm realized that it was this life down there. So they explore the quantum realm a lot more, and this is actually it makes a lot of sense if it's going to tie in to future movies. So it's cool that they kind of started to do that, just to explore that a little bit more and show how much it developed over time, and how it's just like a mini universe at that scale, like at that level. Next up, I'll say the humor. So, which makes a lot of sense for Ant-Man, because all throughout the trilogy, humor and its type of humor is just part of the branding of this movie, and it works in a way that you don't see with Thor: Love and Thunder, and you do see with Guardians of the Galaxy. I feel like those three movies, right? Guardians of the Galaxy are those three franchises: Guardians, Thor, and then with Ant-Man, you all kind of have just this level of humor that's built into the branding of those movies. Obviously, with Thor: Love and Thunder, it just didn't work for that movie. It was just a little bit too much. But in Ant-Man, it's a good balance. It actually is funny. It doesn't feel forced. So the humor definitely works, and they stay true to form in that regard. So I'll add to the list of things that I like, Kang's story. So they do a really good job of showing that Kang is, even with all the humor and how the brand is for the Ant-Man movies, how Kang is a problem. I remember seeing a meme that had something. It was depicting Kang as saying something like, I'm more ambitious than Thanos and stuff like that, and he definitely is in this film, and you see that very, 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 very clear. If Thanos is trying to just get rid of half of life in the universe, and then you see him destroying the Infinity Stones after he did that and said, like, listen, the only thing they're good for now is just temptation, so let me get rid of him. Kang is saying, like, listen, I'm going after everything. You see his goal is to take over the multiverse and that type of thing, and to conquer. And it's just a lot more of an ambitious, lot more of a boundaryless character, or villain in this case. And you definitely see them, go again into his background, go into even the foundation of his bitterness and that type of thing, and why he wants revenge so much and that type of thing. So let's talk about some of the things I did not like. So I didn't like the lack of development in Scott Lang's character. I feel like he's been the exact same character just about, and the reason why I think that that's such a problem. The reason why I have it on my cons list is because for a character that has his own trilogy now, has been in Civil War, he was in End Game, right? He's been in at least 5 movies at this point, and you don't see too much development in his character. What you do see though is that he more of his hero is him being a hero that comes out a lot more. Especially in that fight, the last fight with Kang, you see the reason why he's an Avenger. But it's not like he was a coward before that, and then now he's developed into this hero. He always was that. It's just that they brought that out more in this film. And so I think that and this isn't a Paul Rudd thing. I love Paul Rudd. I think he's such a great person for this role, and he does his thing. But I think for Marvel, I don't know what they're gonna do with Ant-Man, or like what direction they're gonna go. Because if 5 movies in, if they haven't shown any development with the character, like what are you gonna do? And maybe that's just their plan to keep him constant. But for a franchise that has as one of its strengths their ability to develop their characters into to the point that people really, really connect with them and they rock with them and they see the growth, for them to have that track record and to not do that with a character like Ant-Man, who was an MVP in Endgame, and then you kick off Phase 5 with his movie starring your next big villain, it's just like, it seems like a disservice to the character. So I don't know what the team is doing over there with Marvel. I just would like to have seen a little bit more development with his character. Another one I'll add to my list of things that are more cons for the movie is that even though it was funny and they stayed true to form, and I do not take that back, some of it was a little cheesy. There's one scene where, Ant-Man is like grown huge or whatnot. He's walking towards Kang saying, yo, we had a deal. We had, you're supposed to, keep your word. That's all we have. And the way he said it is just so cheesy. And then MODOK, which is cool that they depicted him in the film, he provided some comedic relief. But his death was just super, just overly dramatic. And maybe that's what they were going for, to make it funny. But it just was overly dramatic and just a little like, okay, this is so random. This dude who is like this killing machine, and he's trying to get them out of here, and all of a sudden he has this crazy sudden change of heart, and then he dies this really dramatic death, talking about he's an Avenger, and it just seems so like cheesy, and just, it was like, I remember I had to turn my head. I'm like, this ain't it, y'all. But he did provide a lot of comedic relief, and it was funny. But before that death scene, it just was like, what's going on here? Another one I'll say, even though I liked how they went into Kang's background, it did feel a little odd that they introduced that type of villain into an Ant-Man movie. And I say that because even though I think that's it's so dope that they decided to do that for that franchise, it still feels weird because you have that seriousness of a villain introduced into a movie who has humor and stuff like that branded, as part of the brand. And so maybe the thinking is to balance it out, but certain point it just kind of feels a little odd, right? Then you have him defeated by this group of ants, and it's like it's badly hurt by this group of ants that are really advanced technologically. And shout out to Ants, by the way, I have a respect for Ants after watching this movie. Sidebar. But it just was really interesting that they had him in this movie and introduced this way. It just seemed a little, I don't know, just seemed a bit odd that they would do that and introduce him in this, because of the type of villain and the level of villain that he is, that they'll introduce him into this one. So my next con, and this may be my last one, it was just weird the way that Kang died. The fact that they introduced this villain in an Ant-Man movie and then they killed him in the same one that he's introduced in, it just was weird. And it seemed like they confirmed that he died. It didn't look like he was getting captured or nothing like that. Because one of his variants later on says that they confirmed that he did, the one who was exiled, that he died. And it just was weird. Even that whole thing when they showed the different variant, it just was weird. It seemed like they would capture him or something like that, and then maybe they show him getting out later on or something like that. But to have him go out like that seemed and for him to be apparently the next big guy, next big villain, it just seemed really, really, really weird. Now it'll be interesting to see what they end up doing, because maybe he comes back in another way, or maybe another one of his variants are just like that. I don't know. But it just seemed very, very odd that they would kill him off like that. And now, granted, you do see towards the end of the film where Scott is realizing, he's thinking back to different things that Kang has said, and he's getting like, those moments where he's getting really serious, like, oh my goodness, what's about to happen, and then it goes back to normal again. So maybe they're alluding to some, obviously it's not over, because it does say that Kang will return. But it'd be interesting to see in what way that happens. But yeah, so I don't want to go too much into the post scene credits and things like that. But when you see that, you'll see that there's obviously some plans there. This is my last one. This is actually still about Kang and his abilities. So in the film, you learn that he's taken out. Spoiler alert again. You may want to change this, y'all, if you're watching this. But how he's taken down Avengers in the past. He talks about doing that, right? That comes up a couple times in the film. But to still see him struggle in certain areas, where I'm like, my man, if you took down Thor, you took down Hulk, like you took down some major characters apparently, and now you struggling with some ants, or you struggling with Ant-Man. It's like I expected a little bit more. You definitely see that mentally he's crazy. You definitely see that he has abilities or whatever. It looks like it came more so from the different what he was wearing around his wrist. But I just would expect more from that character in terms of his ability. You definitely know that he's powerful, that he's really, really strong, but to still see him struggle in different scenes where you wouldn't expect someone to struggle if they've done the things that he's done. So it's just really, this isn't to be nitpicky, but I would have liked to have seen, Kang maybe flex a little bit more, and that's not struggling those different areas. But I get it though. He has to have a weakness. He has to, you got to wrap up the movie or whatnot. They're not going to have him just kill everybody off or nothing like that. So I get it. It's just that it would have been, maybe some consistency there. Yeah, so I don't know what that could have looked like. So maybe it could have just been when things got damaged. That was kind of the explanation for why his power wasn't limited. But even when he had them, for him to still struggle in different scenarios. It just was really interesting. But again, I get it, checks and balances, right? So when it's all said and done, how would I score Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania? When we consider the humor, them staying true to form with that and not deviating from it because it works for them, the casting, the introduction to additional characters, the introduction of Kang, but then on the flip side, when we factor in the lack of character development with Scott Lang's role or his character, the cheesiness in some of the scenes, even though Kang is introduced, it's still a little kind of weird how they use him. I feel like it could have been a little bit more there. Though they do a good job of going into his background, setting the scene for him. But just because it just was, and some of the inconsistencies with his abilities, I would give, all things considered, I would give Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania a 7.5 out of 10 here on the Plot Twist 205. I think that it's it definitely has replay value. I would watch it again. I love Paul Rudd in this film. I think he doesn't get enough credit. But hopefully, I think, but I put that more on Marvel Studios and the writers or whatever. I put that more on them than I do on him. I think he does a good job. He plays his role. I think the entire cast does what they're supposed to do. I think that Marvel will probably, I think they have to figure out what they're going to do with Ant-Man. I don't know if this franchise gets a fourth film. I don't know, but I think they need to figure out what they want to do with him, because he's OG, so to speak, at this point. So he's definitely an important character. So with that being said, this is Michael Miles with the Plot Twist 215, giving you a movie review of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. As always, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell to get notifications about future videos, and do not forget to subscribe or to follow the Plot Twist 215 podcast, which you'll find on both Anchor and on Spotify. With that being said, y'all, have a great day. Love y'all. Peace.